Here to talk about Ohio State's National Signing Day class. Doug Lesmerises, Nathan Baird, and Stephen Means. You can't do this without talking about NIL and name, image, and likeness and the percolating frustration, confusion that is underneath college football recruiting right now. Nathan, when we talked to Ryan Day last week, he got a lot of NIL questions. When we talked to him on signing day, he got a lot of NIL questions. How much of an effect do you think NIL is having on Ohio State recruiting, and how much did you see that reflected on National Signing Day?
It's definitely affecting it. There are definitely players that Ohio State wanted in this class that aren't here because of NIL and what is essentially right now recruiting inducements, which is not supposed to be happening in NIL, but which Ohio State would also be countering if it felt it could also right now. There are some places that have more of a war chest that they're willing to dole out to guys coming in than Ohio State has right now, either through the revenue or the policies of the collectives, or whether it's just because it's ultimately, I don't know if it's a sphere that they want to play in that way. And we're still in a what do I want to say? It's a fluid situation because the rules of this are still evolving and the practices of this are still evolving. But clearly, there has been a frustration building in this building over the last couple of weeks, and Ryan Day sort of addressed that today because I asked him, is this a bigger problem for you in terms of this, recruiting, getting up to signing day, or is it a bigger problem for the guys on your roster being dissatisfied? And he said that it's an issue for both, but that especially as you got closer to signing day, they felt things tighten up. They felt a problem developing as far as keeping the class together that they had gotten commitments for.
Stephen, this is not entirely different from the past of recruiting, where whether it was college football or college basketball, you would hear stories from people, often after the fact, that say, well, the reason we didn't get this guy was that. And for me, I was always like, well, I mean, yes, I get it, but also I don't know what to tell you. We kind of got to evaluate you on what you got. And I don't, it's, maybe they're excuses, maybe they're reality, but now that it's more legal, and as Nathan's making the point, the direct recruiting inducement of here's money if you come to our school that's not really what NIL is supposed to be, but the NCAA is not policing it. So how are we supposed to evaluate an Ohio State class that overall by a star rating is going to be like 6 or 7? Yeah. By average star rating, which goes to the quality, is still going to be 2 or 3. But in the past, even by overall, they would often be in the top 3. How much of a – do we grade them on a curve? Is there an NIL curve now? Do you still hold them to the same high standard? I think fans want to know how they should look at this Ohio State class and what they should be mad about or maybe understanding about.
I don't know if you're understanding about any of that because you're mad because you're not competing, but you're mad because you're not competing in a new way. Ohio State's got to be willing to play the game, yes, but as Nathan just said, you have to be able to play the game. If you step on a court and you can't play, then what's the point of you being out there even if you want to play? So you're less mad at the people in this building and more mad at the people outside the building who may or may, if you think that maybe they're not handling the collectives the right way to put you in a position where you can go to bat for guys, because 5-star recruits have always cost money. It's just now, instead of maybe 3 or 4 of them making you actually pay the cost, all of them are going to make you pay the cost for it. So I don't want to say you excuse it for this cycle, but I do wonder what that means for the 2024 cycle. If this is just something where Ohio State, whether it's the athletic program or people heading to collectives, realize, oh, this is a thing, we need to get on our stuff. And do we see a reaction to that going forward, and this becomes a bump in the road down the road?
I compared it to legalized sports betting, which, by the way, is coming to Ohio. You can go to cleveland.com/betting to find out everything you need to know. So I was never going to have a bookie because I didn't want to get my knees nailed to the floor. But if sports betting is legal and you can go on an app and bet $2 on an NBA game, then I might be open to doing that. So I do think that, because some people say, well, what's the difference? It's like, well, there are people in the world who kind of, if you're not supposed to do it, are reluctant to do it. Some people will still do it, and I'm not judging anybody who did. That's fine. But if it's more okay, and it's not quite all the way okay, but nobody's policing it, so it feels okay right now. I can take money from a school as a recruit. I think there are more people willing to do that. And I think in the past, it's like, what's changed? I just would think we have to acknowledge that some people operate that way. I operate that way. If I was 18 and highly skilled, imagine that world.
Can't.
I think I would have been reluctant 5 years ago. It's easy to say. To whatever, do stuff under the table, because I would have been worried I was going to get caught and I was going to get suspended and my school was going to go on NCAA probation. I would have been worried about that. But now, if I know I can take it, everybody's offering it, and nobody's going to get in trouble, I think I might say, I'm going to go to the school that gives me the most money. And there's just more people doing that. And so then the idea is, well, okay, then Ohio State, give out more money. Or deal with the consequences. The thing we don't know yet is usually great recruiting equals winning. Boom. You can pretend it doesn't, but it does. I do think, Nathan, maybe in a world where maybe more people are making decisions that are not as much with their head and heart and more with their wallet, which is fine. I'm not saying that's bad. But does it affect, do you maybe win? It's like free agents, right? In pro sports, you sign a free agent. Well, if you just get the guy with pure money, but he doesn't really want to live in that city, he doesn't really want to play for that coach or manager, but he just came for the money, he might not be as good. I do think we have to see, Nathan, if there's less of an equation between the top recruiting schools and winning in a world where maybe you're getting more guys based on finances and less on all the other things that go into recruiting.
It's possible that this market starts to correct itself. That's what I was saying before about how this is still a fluid situation, and the practices, not just of the NCAA and people who are trying to, and schools that are trying to or wishing that there were guardrails, it's also the people who are actually giving out the money that might start to change their practices in this. And we've already seen that at a place like Texas A&M, which very famously gave out supposedly, millions of dollars or whatever it was to get last year's recruiting class, and a lot of those guys are already out the door looking for another place to play. And you asked Ryan Day, I thought, a very poignant question about, are there guys who are making financial decisions today, and then a year from now maybe they're making a football decision, a development decision, but they get to take the money with them wherever they go next and have a nicer apartment or whatever. And Ryan Day said, there are guys who are right now probably just getting an offer that they can't refuse, sort of, but because of the other rules that don't have anything to do with NIL, just transfer rules and stuff like that, they have more flexibility than they've ever had. So some of this is just part of the players having more power than they've ever had before and making the most of it.
In pro sports, the rookies don't make more money than the veterans. The system is set up that way. Right now, in the NFL, some of the high draft picks they make, but right now, it feels like, in a world where if you're really putting your NIL into recruiting, you're paying the rookies. And you don't know what a rookie's going to be, no matter how highly rated it is. And I think Ohio State, certainly at least in the summer, was operating under the idea of you pay the veterans. Oh, once you're here and you're a successful starting quarterback or a receiver, then you'll get deals. But I don't know if we want to be handing out to recruits. Well, today is recruit day. So today is talk about the rookies day, and they didn't get as many rookies as they usually do. So we're not making excuses, but we have to think about the context. We'll do that more at cleveland.com/OSU. We'll do it more in the Buckeye Talk podcast. We'll do it more in our texts, 614-350-3315. He's Nathan. He's Steven. I'm Doug. Thanks for watching the Buckeye Talk video.